If you've watched the longer whiteboard video on diagramming that I posted, then most of what I want to tell you in this video you already know. But I want to sum everything up into best practices, and I've chosen to do that here with an acronym that I'm calling C.L.A.S.S.y. And this stands for clarity, logical accuracy, simplicity, and speed. Now, while these are mostly self-explanatory, I want to go over them in a little bit of detail to illustrate how each part of this acronym contributes to best practices when you're diagramming logic games. Clarity means, of course, that your diagram should be clear, and most importantly, it should be clear to you. It doesn't really matter what symbols you choose, it doesn't matter what ways you choose to represent diagrams, as long as they are clear to you. No one has the lock on how to diagram things. No one has the best way to diagram them, because that's going to be an individual decision that you make. Take your diagramming lexicon from wherever you can and use it in a way that works best for you, and once it stops being effective for you, find something else. Now, I've posted my lexicon, which you're welcome to steal, you're welcome to use. It's fine by me. I don't claim to own it because symbols are kind of universal. I'm not the first person in the world to use an arrow to represent a conditional, so have that. But it is going to be able to provide you with at least a basis for constructing your own lexicon. Now, clarity also means that that lexicon or those symbols you use have to be consistent. And what I mean is, once you use a symbol for a specific function on logic games, that is all that it can ever mean. Many of my clients use symbols repeatedly in different contexts, and the result of that is they get confused. They can't remember, am I using this symbol like this or am I using it like this? So once you've settled on a meaning for a given symbol, that is all it can mean. If you used a raised line like I do to indicate earlier and later, that is all it can ever mean. The reason why you want that level of consistency is because you never want to be confused by your own diagram, so that everything that appears in that diagram has a consistent single meaning that you will always know and you will always understand when you see that symbol. And it's going to help that clarity that you need for that diagram. Finally, clarity means organization. What I mean by that is determine in advance during your practice sessions where you're going to put everything when you sit down to a logic game. In other words, know where you're going to put your master diagram, know where you're going to put your variables, know where you're going to place your rules. Do all of that in advance. Know that in advance. So when you sit down, you can think of that blank page in front of you as already divided up with where that information needs to go. And again, the point here is speed. You don't ever have to try to remember, okay, wait, was that an original rule? Is that an inference that I drew? Is this my master diagram? Because you will always put those things in the same place. And putting them in the same place means you always know where to find them. Organization is a key element of clarity. So make sure you practice that all the time. Next, logical accuracy. Logical accuracy means that your diagram includes all and every logical possibility conveyed by the rules in the game, and it excludes any logical possibilities not directly carried in the game or the rules. This is a lot harder than you might think, because the LSAT works very hard to confuse you or mislead you about those logical relationships. So if you're not entirely sure that the representation you have accurately reflects the logical relationships, you need to stop and make sure that it does. Because once it's in your diagram, that's what you're going to focus on. That's what you're going to use. You're not going to go back and look at the written form of the logic game. You're only going to use your diagram. And you want to be able to trust that however your diagram is constructed, it carries every logical possibility that implied by the game. This also means, of course, you can't leave out anything that is implied. So make sure that when you construct your diagram, it's logically complete and logically accurate, so that everything that's in that diagram needs to be there, and anything that is not logically accurate is excluded from your diagram. I know simplicity is pretty self-evident, But one of the things that I mean by simplicity for the purpose of best practices is as little as possible. Use the fewest lines possible. Use the fewest symbols possible. Use the fewest diagrams possible. Only create multiple boards when you absolutely have to. The simpler you can keep things, the less cluttered they are, the easier it's going to be to find the relationships you need to find, draw the conclusions that you need to draw. Additional lines, graphs, boxes, all, if it helps you, great. But remember, the cost in time has to be measured against the return on that investment of time. It also means you should be working hard in your practice sessions to find ways to simplify your diagrams. Look for any way you can to make that diagram more efficient, more practical, and simpler. Finally, your diagram needs to be speedy. There needs to be a real economy of time here, because your diagram is just a means to an end. That's it. It's simply a way to quickly present visual representations of the logical relationships you need. No one cares if it's a completely beautiful or perfect or aesthetically pleasing diagram. All you need to care about is, does this diagram show me the relationships I need to have in order to solve this game? You don't need to penetrate to the truth of the logic game as though you're discovering some lost world or putting together all possible permutations and combinations. Who cares? Use your diagram to answer the questions accurately and quickly. That's it. And that means this diagram needs to be able to be constructed as fast as possible. Now, this goes hand in hand with simplicity. The simpler your diagram, the faster you're going to be able to put it together, but your emphasis needs to be on speed. Don't go so fast you lose track of things and it's not logically accurate. Go as slow as you need, and we'll work on that, and I have some drills connected to that. But make sure that when you do that diagram, it's as fast as you can possibly do it. Now, in the videos that follow, I have 6 videos on diagramming. But these are not concept videos. These are not abstract videos. In each of those videos, I'm diagramming a game that I use to illustrate specific concepts I want you to apply in your diagramming. Now, we will refine these concepts and ideas as we go forward and look at full logic games. But any concept or idea is useless unless you can see how it's applied within a specific context and in a specific game. And I cover all of the concepts that I think you need to get started with diagramming in these 6 games. It doesn't mean these are all and only the concepts you need, but it gives you the working fundamentals to be able to apply these in your games yourself. I also give you the identifying information for the game that I'm diagramming, so that I would encourage you to first complete that diagram on your own. Don't draw inferences, don't answer the questions, just complete the diagram on your own and then watch my video on that diagram, compare them and see how you did relative to what I gave you. And more importantly, see how you might improve that diagram after you watch that video. And here's what's really key. Don't treat my video as if it's the ultimate and final answer for how to diagram that logic game. There are plenty of ways to diagram logic games. The goal is to find the one that works for you. I'm providing you with what I think is one of the quickest, simplest ways to construct a diagram. You can compare that to your own and then think in a metacognitive way what's going to make your diagram the clearest, best possible diagram for you. Apply the concepts that I teach you, apply the practices that I give you, but in the end, make that diagram your own. Don't aim at making it like mine. Mine is constructed for me. Mine works for me. My lexicon is one that I'm comfortable with. The concepts and ideas I think are universal and applicable, but the practical enforcement of those concepts, the practical way you apply them, I'm giving you one idea. You're going to carry with you one idea as you work on trying to improve that diagram, put together your own. And that's it. I hope you enjoy these videos on diagramming, and then after that, we're going to work on full logic games where I'll do the same thing. Applied concepts and ideas looked at in specific games. So have fun and keep watching.